Violets are blue. I love peanut butter. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. Next, Vivek, do you want to come up?
I've never been up here with these lights before, and yes, they are terrible. Okay, so I recently started blogging, and I am about to broadcast a very insignificant detail about my life. But surprisingly, these insignificant details can sometimes turn into struggles of life or death. When I was on my way here from the library after I printed this, I ran into the Nicholson Street drug dealer again. I've written a blog post about him already. The only reason I didn't read that out before was because I thought it'd be creepy, and trust me, it is. But anyway, I run into him, and he follows me all the way to Pleasance. And he leaves me because a drunk guy threw a traffic cone at me at 8:30 in the evening. So clearly, some little details can turn into struggles of life and death. So on that note, what I write is prose, so it's prose basically. So with due apologies to Danny Boyle and Aaron Ralston, I present 127 minutes. So on the 5th of September 2012, I was trapped in my bathroom for 2 hours and had to break through the door in order to escape. My flatmates had gone back to Dundee for the weekend, and my bathroom was, for what it's worth, soundproof. I was left by myself. My bathroom has no windows. It is a dank, depressing cell of ceramic, flaking plaster, reeking of mold and fermentation. My flatmates and I take immense care to maintain the flat, but we are obligated to do so, and try as we might, we cannot do anything to save that hell of civil engineering that happens to be our lavatory. So when I was trapped inside, I was more than eager to, shall we say, sacrifice what was left of my tenancy agreement and a fair chunk of my deposit, and not to mention my bathroom door, so I could survive that awful nightmare of a Saturday morning. Now, bearing that in mind, nothing about that morning was out of the ordinary. I mean, I woke up to brush my teeth, I showered as I normally do, I turned the sultry light on outside as I entered, everything was fine. It's just that since my flatmates weren't home, I'd taken to leaving my towel in the bathroom as opposed to in my own room because they weren't around. But then I suppose my towel was a tapestry of comfort in the dank, depressing cell that I was in at the time. But it was a soft beige tapestry in that jaundiced yellow room. And in all fairness, the only good thing about my bathroom is that we only have one tap for both the hot and cold water. Of course, given the developments of modern technology today, with 21st century sanitation being as good as it is, I realize that one unified tap is a luxury that we can never take for granted. In fact, if there's one thing I will miss about my flat, it's not the mice, it's not the leaking ceiling, it's not the people upstairs who have kept me awake till 4 o'clock in the morning before my exam, but it's having one single tap for both the hot and cold water. But nevertheless, I did have to break out of that flat, and after I showered and I tried to unlock the door, the lock did not budge. I struggled a little bit and I could hear the heartbreaking snap of the door lock. And as I tried to push the knob back onto the axle, I could hear it slip through and fall out the other end. I had no implements whatsoever to break out of that door. And when I'm caught in such a situation, I normally think of Douglas Adams and his invaluable advice. Now, in these situations, two things came to mind. At the time, I realized that a towel would not be as helpful as it really is. Given the circumstances, I needed something more solid than that. The only thing I could rely on, as per Douglas Adams, was the adage, don't panic. I was not panicking. I mean, I took stock of the situation very promptly. The door was locked. The lock was broken. The front door was also locked. Nobody could hear me shout or scream at that time of the day, and roughly at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was unlikely that anyone would be there to rescue me. I decided I would have to break the door open. I shouted for 5 minutes trying to work out a systematic method of breaking the door down. I tried ramming the door hard, but it did not help, as the door was a composite door. And as I discovered, composite doors have a shock-absorbing foam padding inside, which absorbs all impact. So I realized that soon I had to strip off all the plywood on the facing layer and tear out the shock-absorbing foam padding from inside. Now, once I could get my hand between the layers, I would eventually rip out the foam padding and create a hole big enough for my fist. And once I did that, I would have to punch through the other end and claw out till I managed to unlock the front door. Now, when I did manage that, I was able to hold the door wide enough for me to poke my face through the little gap between my wrist and the door and shout, Could someone help me? I seem to be in a spot of bother here. I'm trapped inside my bathroom, and given the circumstances, I have nothing. Could someone please call the police or get a screwdriver? Unfortunately, there was nothing anyone could do. Now, as I said before, given the circumstances, it's the little things that matter. Now, the little things like a screwdriver, or as I eventually discovered, the heel of my shoe, could make the difference between life and death. And as I would soon discover, it was my towel that made the difference between sanity and insanity. Of course, for any further details, you'd have to read my blog, for I risk giving away too many spoilers. But if anything, I should like to end with, well, I should like to end on a similar note that, given the circumstances, it was the little things that mattered. Like Richard III being knocked off his horse, shouting, "My kingdom for a horse." Well, I would gladly give up my flat for a screwdriver in these circumstances. Of course, bearing this in mind, I have to get a reference from my landlord tomorrow for a flat that I'm looking at. So I just realized how untimely this comes. But anyway, thank you very much for listening.